Hi everybody, I'm Mike Garska with SuccessToolChest.com and FindAMentor.com. Welcome to this week's Help Me Communicate, where I help you become a better communicator. This week, I'm going to talk about the power of stories. People relate to stories. They like to hear them. In building relationships, stories are powerful. I'm going to talk about 4 types of stories today. I'm going to talk about the funny story to start with. I'm going to talk about the whole story and the importance of the whole story. I'm going to talk about the 2 most important stories, your own story and the other person's story. The funny story, it opens people up with a smile. When people smile, their facial expression opens. They become more open. They're a little bit more relaxed, and they become more engaged and open to some influence. When we relate in humor in relationships, trust builds, safety builds. Whether the humor story is a joke or a real true situation, fun and humor builds relationships, just like breaking bread. When we go out for lunch with people or have dinner with people and we break bread together, it just takes a relationship to a next level. So the funny story that I want to share with you today is about a couple, and they're on a winter vacation down in Florida, walking on the beach. And this couple is on their annual vacation, and they're walking the beach, and it's a beautiful sunny day. The waves are rolling in, the sun's coming up, and they're having their morning walk, and they come across this great big old bottle with a cork in the end of it. Well, curiosity gets the best of them, of course. The gentleman picks up the bottle and pulls the cork out, and poof, out comes a great big genie. The genie scratches and says, "Geez, I've been in that bottle for 1,000 years. I'm so grateful that you let me out of there." And he says, "You know, I'm a genie and I've got incredible powers. And to express my gratitude for letting me out of this bottle, I'm going to grant each of you a wish. Anything in the world that you want. So think about it. Be careful, because you get exactly what you wish for. Be specific. Tell me what you want, and I'll grant you a wish." And he looks at the lady and he says, "Ladies first, ma'am, what would your wish be?" The woman looks at him and says, "I don't need to think about it. I know exactly what I want. I've always wanted to fly around the world first class, stay in the nicest hotels, dine in the finest restaurants." And poof, a great big basket appears. It's got first class air tickets all over the world, vouchers to the nicest hotels and the finest restaurants. She's so happy, she's got tears coming down her face. The genie's proud of himself. He looks at the gentleman and says, "Okay, sir, now it's your turn. What's your wish?" The gentleman, he hesitates a little bit, looks at the genie, looks at his wife. He says, "I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this, but I've always wanted a wife that was 30 years younger than me." And poof, he was 90. Now, I tell you that story again to get that smile going on your face, to get you opened up. And often when I'm going into a mediation session that's going to be intense, I'll break the ice with a little bit of humor just to get people to relax a little bit. So use that funny story to break the ice when it's intense situations before you go into that intense meeting, or use it to break the ice when you've met somebody new, or when you want to build on a relationship. That's where the funny story has power. This next story that I want to talk to you about is a whole story. Now, often when we share partial stories, things are misinterpreted and they go awry. So there was a time where I sent an email out promoting a communications course that we were offering, and in the communication in the email, I did a real brief line. I said, "You know, these communications techniques, they help me get through a divorce without using a lawyer." And people responded, "Well, if you got divorced, then you must not be that good of a communicator. I never shared the whole story." And this was the whole story. The story is, my first wife and I were together for 17 years. And we were in love and very, very compatible on many things. We were compatible in our spirituality. We were compatible in our politics. We were compatible in how we raised our children. We were compatible in life process in general. But we struggled for 17 years with sexuality. I was very frustrated. We never had sex enough. But the thing about that was, in talking with other people, it was a common problem in relationships. And so we persevered, and we worked at making our relationship and our sexual relationship better. And after about 15 years, and both of us were very good communicators, we took the communications programs and we learned the same information that I'm sharing with you in our contact communications program and in these weekly things. And those communication techniques helped us maintain a strong relationship, even though we had that weakness of having sexual issues. And I got to the point where I was quite frustrated, and I said to Sean, I said, you know, we've got to do something about this. I'm frustrated. So either we go and get sexual therapy from a counselor and get some outside support here. We'd read books on it. We'd communicated effectively. We talked it out. We talked with other people, and we weren't getting anywhere. So I said, either we get some professional support or I've got to end the relationship. So that's what we did. And we began to see a counselor that specialized in sexual therapy. And after about a year of doing this, the relationship was moving along. You know, it was still healthy. Like I say, we were in love, and we loved each other deeply, and we were very compatible on every aspect of life, except for sexuality. And so after about a year of this counseling, she went on a trip, a woman's only trip to Ireland, gone for about 3 weeks. She came back. And she said, Michael, I have something really important that I have to share with you, something that I discovered on my vacation. And what she shared with me, and she did it very effectively using the techniques that I share with you in these programs. So she didn't put me on the defensive for make me feel, inadequate or anything like that. What she said to me was, on my trip, I found myself extremely attracted to one of the tour guides, another woman, a lesbian. And I heard that, and my mind started to go, well, this kind of makes sense then. That's, we had all kinds of sexuality issues, and there was very little desire on her part. She said, I felt a drive in that case. I said, okay. And we decided in that moment that, okay, let's just take a step back here and talk about this further. And we decided to let that exploration happen. She never acted on the attraction on her trip, but we decided that she would have permission to explore and see if that was truly what was going on for her. After a few months of continually talking, and believe me, the relationship got intense for those few months, and we talked a lot, and the relationship was open, and she decided that this was definitely her calling from a sexuality perspective. And so we decided that the best thing that we could do is to look at this divorce concept. Now, both of us came from divorced families. We really wanted to persevere in this relationship. We wanted to break the cycle for our own children. And so considering divorce was a very difficult thing for both of us. But we both knew that our personal mental health was more important than keeping a relationship together for the sake of the kids. That our personal mental health was more important to ourselves and actually to our children. If we weren't happy, how can we be supportive and good guiding parents to our children? If we weren't happy individually, how could we each realize our full potential? So we decided that we would get a divorce. And in this whole 1 year period, it was about a 1 year period before we came to that final decision. In fact, we only had one fight. And that's because we used these techniques for communicating that I'm sharing with you in these weekly sessions and in the contact communications program at successtoolchest.com. And that one fight was about when to tell the kids that this was going to happen, that their parents were going to get divorced. And that fight only lasted about 5 minutes, and we came to a resolution. We told the kids, and the process that we went through after that was, instead of each of us getting different homes, we decided we would rent an apartment, and the parents would actually move back and forth, and the kids would stay in their original home, and they would stay in their schools, and they would maintain all their friendships. And rather than putting them through that struggle of moving back and forth, living with mom one week, living with dad the other week, that they would stay in their home, and mom and dad would move back and forth. So I would move into the apartment for a week, and then I'd come home for a week and be with the kids. And that's how we transited out of our marriage. I can tell you that we still maintain a very strong friendship. I still have strong friendships with all my ex-in-laws. And in fact, my first wife, about 10 years later, introduced me to my second wife. Now, this divorce happened about 18 years ago. I've been married for 8 years now. My first wife has been in the same relationship for 18 years. And the most important thing I can tell you about relationships is having an ability to communicate through struggles. Every relationship has struggles. Our ability to navigate those struggles and to honor each other and to be truthful, to be authentic, to be open and honest and direct is what can keep a relationship strong. And there's ways to do that without putting other people on the defensive or without pushing people away. And those are the things that we talk about in these weekly sessions and Help Me Communicate. And those are the things that we train you out on in the Contact Communications program at successtoolchest.com. And so if your relationship is important to you, it's very important that both of you become very, very good communicators. There's situations I've witnessed where one person is a good communicator, but the other person isn't. And they're not on the same page in how they communicate. And the relationship eventually splits. And often it splits with big, big lawyer fees. And it splits with lots of angst and disruption in many people's lives. If you are not a good communicator, the chances of relationship resolution becomes very small. And that applies at work or at home or any place. So the most important tools that you can develop is effective communications tools. And that's why I do this weekly, Help Me Communicate, to help people become better communicators. Now I want to talk about the next two stories, the most important stories in anyone's life. And that is the two most important stories in your life are your story and the other person's story. And that's about in the moment. The two most important stories to be able to share and find out about are being able to share your own story effectively without putting people on the defensive, without appearing that you're not being authentic or true or honest. And that's why we offer the Contact program, to show you how to do that. And the other really important story to find out in any given moment is the other person's story. Stephen Covey, in his 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, one of the most important habits that he talks about is developing that habit to seek first to understand, then to be understood. And most often, the most important story to find out is the other person's story, and to find out and truly, fully understand is the other person's story before seeking understanding and sharing our own. And so what do you want to do in finding out about the other person's story? Well, again, it comes back to this human interaction process. The most important point of time in any person's life is right here, right now. Whether that's your life or my life. We can't do anything about the past, and truly the only effect we have on the future is in how we think and feel about it right here in this moment. What our personal story is going on in our brain at any given moment in time. That is the story that has the most effect on the future. So if you want to have a positive effect on the success in your future, it's about how you control that internal story in this moment. And if you truly want to be a really successful person, you have to get really good at communicating. And the best way to get really good at communicating is in the moment of sharing and discovering stories. You're sharing your own story, discovering the other person's story. Getting good at that at any given moment in time really prepares you for those moments that come up in life that are very difficult and challenging, where there's conflict or angst or discomfort. And so how do you do that? Well, you follow a simple 5-step inquiry process when you're seeking to understand. And you want to find out what in any given, and practice this anytime you think about it. Find out what's going on for the other person in their human interaction process. I call it discovering the HIP, the human interaction process. And what happens in our human interaction process is a 5-step process. Yeah, all humans, all day long, every day long, we go through this human interaction process. Now, sometimes we're only interacting with ourselves and the world around us. Most often, as humans, we're social creatures and we're interacting with other people. And what happens in that process for each person, over and over and over, all day long, is we sense something first. It's a 5-step process. We sense one of our physical senses. When we're communicating, it's typically we see something, and then, or we hear something. We hear words or see actions. From that, we get a thought. And we have a thought process around what we just witnessed, saw, or heard. Then we get an emotion. Emotion is triggered. Now, sometimes the thought comes before the emotion. Sometimes the emotion comes before the thought. It depends on the individual, the situation, the circumstance. But we sense, we think, we feel. And out of those three, we gain an intention. And then we choose our action. Now, intentions come in two forms. They come in underlying intentions and overlying intentions. And what we want to do is we want to always uncover that underlying intention. So in seeking to understand the other person's story, you want to ask them, okay, so what did you just hear or see? And remember that even though two people hear the same words or see the same thing, each person's human interaction process is as unique as their DNA. And so they might see the same thing as you or hear the same words as you, but they have a completely different interpretation of what they just witnessed because they have a completely different life set of stories than you do. And if we don't seek to understand that other person and they don't feel understood, we're going to push them away. So we want to find out, okay, so when you saw that action or when you heard those words, what was your thought process? How did you feel about that? And what's your intention? What do you want? What's the good thing that you want to come out of this? And when looking for that underlying intention, we're looking for the good stuff. Now, let me give you an example of an overlying intention. So you say something to me and I get really angry. Now, underneath, I don't like to feel anger. Every human, our basic human intentions are one of two things. Either a desire to give love or a desire to receive love and feel loved. And out of that, often we'll get an overlying intention. So you make me angry. When I'm feeling angry, I'm not feeling loved, or I'm not feeling an ability to share my love. And so when you make me angry, often people will move to that reaction as, okay, you made me angry, I'm going to make you angry. And the intention there is to make them angry so that they learn, I teach them a lesson so they don't make me angry next time. And so that I can feel my love or give my love. Or in a work situation, it might be so I can do my job. But again, that's all has its basis in love. When we want to do our job well, it's because we want to be accepted and loved. We want to be able to feel good about the service that we give to others. And if we think that's blocked, we might respond with an overlying intention of blocking the other person from experiencing good things. But in the end, we want compatibility and peace and love. That's what people want in the end. And their ways of getting there are all can get convoluted because we get stuck in these overlying intentions of anger and fear and frustrations. So we want to find out the underlying intention. Ask people. Get in the habit of inquiring about other people. So what's your interpretation of what we just witnessed? How do you think about it? What are you feeling? What do you want after you see something like that? What would you like to see happen? And find that out genuinely. When we are exploring the other person's hip, their authentic hip, what they witnessed, and we validate what their hip is. Because every person's hip is valid, whether I agree with it or not. It's their truth. It's what happened for them. And when I feel validated, and when another person feels validated, they feel more open. It's authentic. It's truthful, it's open, direct, and honest. Discover their hip, find out what they sensed, what words they heard. Sometimes we hear the same words, but we hear different words because we have different interpretations. Find out what they thought about it, how they felt about it, and what their underlying intentions are. And that's the actions in that human interaction process. The fifth part of the process is always acting from that intention. So you want to always discover those four parts of the hip in the other person. And then share your story, because that's the most important story to any individual, is their own story. We all have a desire to be understood, to be accepted, to be loved. And we do that by sharing our authentic, true story, which is our hip, what we witnessed. This is what I witnessed. Here's what my thoughts are about that. Here's how I feel about that. When I shared the story of my situation, my divorce situation, I shared with you that I was frustrated. I shared my feeling. I shared what we witnessed, that there was sexual issues. I shared my thoughts around that I was frustrated and that I wanted to have a stronger relationship, that we wanted to persevere, that we didn't want to. So that was all the thought process. And I shared my intention, that I wanted my kids to feel loved, to get full support, that we didn't want to break the cycle, that we didn't want to break a cycle. So I shared all of that in sharing that story. Even when I shared the joke about the genie, I shared emotion, I shared thoughts, I shared intentions. Okay? I shared what the person's witnessed, what they saw. The whole story, your whole story, the other person's whole story is very, very important, and to throw some humor in that. So today's lesson is all about finding out about stories, because that's where the power is. That's where your power to influence other people is in finding out about their hip story, their human interaction process story. And remember, so your story and the other person's story are the two most important stories. The whole story is critical. There's times if you don't share the whole story, misinterpretations go out of whack. And throw in a funny story once in a while to break the ice and keep people smiling. I hope you enjoyed today's presentation on Help Me Communicate. I hope you start to share your story openly, honestly, authentically, and wholly. And as you get good at exploring other people's story and sharing your own, you will naturally become a better communicator as you get good at exploring that human interaction process, that sensing, thinking, feeling, and intending process. You alter the actions in both you and the other person as you get good at that. So, in closing, I hope you got something from today. Don't forget to like our page. Don't forget to go to successtoolchest.com. We have a free download on this human interaction process. You can download it in a PDF, or you can watch a short video on that, on what that human interaction process is, to get a clear understanding. You can sign up for the Contact Communications program to help you become that great communicator. And we're going to be offering some specials on this program over the next couple months as we get things going for the spring here. You go out and make it an awesome day. Check out findamentor.com. Be a mentor in that area of life that you're really good at, and be a mentee in that area of life that you want to get better at. There's over 1,900 categories where you can join to be a mentor or a mentee at findamentor.com, and it's all free. Go out and make it an awesome day. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week for Help Me Communicate. Bye for now. Cheers.